What's going on, everyone? We're sitting here today with Brother Deric Muhammad out of Houston, Texas. I know some of you have probably seen him on the videos that we posted about the no bloodshed videos. The recent one, you probably can check that playlist, and you will see him and Pastor Deckard if you had watched that video. So I want to thank Brother Deric for joining us today for this interview. So Brother Deric, I want to thank you. So how you doing?
I'm doing well. Let me say thank you so much for having me. It's an honor and a privilege and a pleasure to be on the Advise Show. Thank you, Brother Phil.
Now, look, this is the thing. When I first met this brother, I was invited by Brother Jesse, and I seen him. He said, "Wait a minute, I know you from somewhere." And I'm like, he said, "You be on the internet?" So I'm like, "Yeah." And then so he recognized who I was, and I was like, "Wow!" I was like, "I've been seeing you on TV for years," and it's cool that we do this thing, and other people are reaching out, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that we all connect and try to do the best thing we can in the community. So, Brother Deric, for people that really don't know you, how do you get to the point where you started to say, you know what, I have to do something outside of just being a regular member at your, organization and stuff like that?
Well, Brother Phil, I have to say that activism is most definitely a labor of love. And as long as I can remember, I've been the type of human being that could not stand to see Goliath pick on David, because I knew in my heart of hearts that if Goliath really knew the power that was within David, Goliath would leave David alone. So to see bullies pick on the little man, I've always had a problem with that. I grew up in a household sometimes watching my mother being physically abused, and that always bothered me, and I hated the fact that I couldn't do more about it. So as I came of age, that never left me. So to be a voice for the voiceless is something that's within me. I can't say that I can really explain where it comes from. The only thing I can, attribute it to is that it comes from God. And I believe that it's in every human being. There's a voice within us that says when we see injustice that we have to do something about it. But either you can ignore the voice or you can listen to the voice and move out. Sometimes we listen to the voice, we want to move out on the voice, but we don't know exactly what to do. That's why shows like this are so important, because it keeps us current on the relevant issues in our community and other communities and the world over, but it also gives us direction as it relates to what we can do about the problems of our time.
Well, you stated something I really want to expound upon, because I think some people really dealing with this right now, or possibly have dealt with this, or was in your same position. You're saying as a child that you saw your mother being beaten. What contributed to that? Just the wrong choice of men? Was it your dad around? I mean, what what caused, maybe in your mind, now you're a man, you had a better chance to analyze it, because I met your mother, and she's a very sweet woman, very nice person. So I'm just shocked to even hear that, nice as she is.
Well, my mother she has a saying that she always uses. She says, "Thank God we don't look like what we've been through." And I'm blessed with a beautiful mother, beautiful spirit. She raised me well to the best of her ability. I was born in the 70s, so I grew up in the 80s during the Reagan era. And during that era, they had what was called the war on drugs.
Correct.
And the war on drugs was pretty much a war on inner city communities. My mother got caught up in that. She was a victim, if you will, and she became addicted to drugs, to cocaine. So for the better part of my childhood, my mother had a drug problem, a really bad drug problem. So there were times that because of her sickness that she wasn't in a position to be the best mother for me or my siblings. So oftentimes my siblings and I, we were split up. We come back together. So it was my mother's addiction that made me to see so much. So a lot of the abuse that she took in her relationships was because she hadn't gotten that gorilla off her back, the drug addiction.
Okay.
See, drug addiction creates a lifestyle that spirals out of control and you begin to accept certain things that you would normally accept because you want to get the drugs. I didn't know this until I was older. And, you know, clarity is charity. I thank God for having given me clarity. But I will say that my mother has been clean from drugs and alcohol for over 20 years now. And she's actually a drug counselor.
Oh, that's great.
So she helps people to overcome the same thing that she struggled to overcome in her younger years. And she's really good at it as well. And me being a child of someone who struggled with that, it helps me to understand my people better. So I'm a firm believer that God doesn't send us through things just to be sending us through them. He sends us through things so that we can learn from that and help others along the way. And that's what I'm trying to do.
And, you know, it's evident that, you know, what Brother Deric is doing out there in the streets. You know, listen, when I went out there and met different people, you know, when they see this man, they like have respect for him. And, you know, usually within our community, you know how it is. It's hard to get respect if outside of a basketball player or a rapper or the local, you know, gang member or whatever. So, you know, he's definitely solidified himself in the community. And I'm telling most of you right now, he would not be sitting here if he wasn't, you know, somebody that I say, you know, this is dude is a person that's really helping out within the community. A lot of people talk, but a lot of people aren't acting. So let me ask you another question here. We recently seen the things with Sandra Bland,
Yes, sir.
Tamir Rice.
Yes, sir.
You know, it's being exposed by the grand jury system here in America. They had another sister, I don't know if you saw the video, there was a former prosecutor stated how these grand juries a lot of times are held in secret. The defense attorneys can't even speak up to know what the evidence is or even counsel their client.
Yes.
How is, you know, the mindset within, you know, everyone that you're joining with about the grand jury system, you know, with Sandra Bland, Tamir Rice, because these are some pivotal cases that really happen in the grand juries has not came back with any indictments.
We're all sick and tired of being sick and tired of a system of injustice that was not set up to give justice to black, brown, and poor people in the first place. Let's just be real. In the United States of America, you pretty much get about as much justice as you can afford. And in the case like Sandra Bland, a sister who is no longer here to tell her own story, a sister who was a Black Lives Matter activist herself, and me being an activist. See, as an activist, you live for the fight, you live for the battle. And the false arrest of Sandra Bland gave Sandra something to fight for. That's not when you talk about, let me take my life. No, I want to live another day so I can get out of here and fight this. Why? Because that's my purpose in life. That is what I live for. So we don't believe that the sister committed suicide. I don't believe that. Why? Because my common sense tells me that all of the variables and the facts that have been presented to us in the public, it just does not add up. Now, as it relates to the grand jury system, the grand jury system may as well be a grand dragon system, because the grand jury system is a secret process by which they sweep under the rug the misdeeds and the crimes, if you will, of law enforcement officers, and they've been doing it this way for many years. The only difference between 2016 and 1996 is that you have the internet and you have information or informative shows like The Advice Show that educate people. See, 10 years ago as an activist, most of the populace didn't understand the grand jury system. They do now. They didn't know the difference between a true bill and a no bill. They do now. And that's because the mass media is no longer winning the information war. We're engaged in that war right now. But I believe that the secret grand jury system has to be done away with completely if we are ever to see justice for the little man in America. Sandra Bland didn't have a chance at justice as long as they could go into a dark closet and tell the public that they deliberated the facts and that they investigated this thing thoroughly. She never had a chance at justice. And you out there, if you find yourself in a situation like Sandra Bland's or like Mike Brown's, Eric Garner's, or what have you, as long as the system is as it is, you don't have a chance at justice as well. I hate to break it to you, but that's the honest to God truth.
Now, there's only one state that actually stood up to make a change. That was the state of California. They have banned the process of grand juries for police, brutality cases or anything involving with cops. So they're the only one that took a stand. But the other states, we still got the grand jury system.
We believe that the state of California, in abolishing the secrecy of the grand jury process, has taken a step in the right direction. We don't want to have a parade just yet. Let's see how it works out. But the rest of the states need to follow suit and begin to enact progressive legislation that really represents justice, liberty, and justice for all. Because liberty and justice for all, really, for the past 460 years, has been liberty and justice for y'all, not for us. But, the fall of a nation does not take place from the outside in, it takes place from the inside out. And it's the moral decay inside of the country in which we live that will take it down. It won't be taken down by an outside force. It will not explode, it will implode if we do not seek and successfully give justice to the least, the last, and the lost.
And I've talked about that, a lot on this show about morality, and it goes back to the way we raise our children. When these folks came in, this just go to anybody. When they're trying to tell you that discipline of your children is child abuse, and they took that away from you, then we have no respect of marriage at all. We don't respect faithfulness in that. We celebrate whoredom, whether it's male or female. That's fine. Everything that's bad is good, and everything is good is bad. What do you expect out of society if you have that going on? If you do research of history, you will see every great civilization, is what you said, fell from really within. It really wasn't taken over and conquered. I grew up in a time period where parents, and I told my stories before, if I cussed or I did this, I did that, boy, they got to switch the belt or whatever. And you know what? I understood it now as a grown man. But today, as you see these kids, and I'm talking about these kids, a lot of these kids, they're not being raised right. They raise worse than animals, and it's you see it evident. They don't have no fear, and then we have to really be honest here. I see how these young folks interact with these police. You understand what those police are on. They train killers. They can kill you. They'll kill anybody. Don't matter, right? I've seen a video just recently where a white dude even got out the car and the police unload the whole clip on him. I'm like, whoa, like that. So they ain't playing with nobody. They shoot first, ask question later. But yet our kids don't understand that, you better respect the system that you're in just a little bit. Now, what do you think about these kids that like talking crazy to teachers and getting in the police face in the schools and all this other stuff? Because we have to also take account of some of that too.
Absolutely. I say that as a member of the Nation of Islam, Minister Louis Farrakhan teaches us that he who controls the diameter of your thinking controls the circumference of your activity. Carter G. Woodson said it like this. He said that if you control a man's mind, you don't have to worry about his actions. And if you teach him that it is his lot in life to always go through the back door, even if there is no back door, he'll build one for himself. That's how powerful the mind is. So the question you're asking is about the mentality of our youth. And we don't want to generalize as if though what you're speaking of represents all of our youth. No, but a segment of the population of our young people are most definitely being led astray. They have been led astray. But you got to remember that these are the fruit. It's not the tree. So we really cannot condemn the children without condemning the parents, which is the tree that produced the fruit.
Correct.
So what do I think about them? I think first and foremost, every situation is different. Every child's situation is different. And there was a time when you may have saw me as a child and took a good look at me and came to the conclusion right off the bat, he ain't gonna make it. He ain't gonna make it. But there is a God. And I think Paul says it like this in the scripture. He says that Jesus Christ comes to save the sinner, of whom I am chief. He called himself a chief sinner. I don't know if he was a chief sinner, but basically he's saying, I'm an apostle today, but I wasn't always this way. So we have to, first of all, like you say, be real. You can't blame the police when our young people have not been taught how to deal with the police. Now, the police are professionally trained. Mm-hmm. So if a young 15-year-old gets out and he says something curt or something out of the way to the officer, that don't give you a reason to hit him upside his head.
No,
it doesn't. And at the same time, we cannot ignore the double standard. See, a little black child who doggone spits on the sidewalk might get the same punishment in court as a little white boy who stole something out the store. See, these little white children, they get breaks. We don't get no breaks. Or we get very few. Let me not generalize.
Yeah, based on income too.
Yeah,
that has a lot to do with it too.
Exactly. Exactly. Doesn't necessarily, you don't have to be black. You could be brown. You could be of some other quote unquote hue, and you could be white and poor and not get a break. Remember, we're in a capitalistic society.
Correct.
So I agree with you there, my brother. But what we have to do is we have to assess the problem as it is. And we have to go back to the African proverb of each one teach one. The way you deal with this young brother over here, you may have to deal with this young sister over here a little bit differently. But you got to first start with the mentality and the mindset that this young brother, this young sister can be saved. That's number one. Don't go in with the mentality that they're already doomed for failure, because that mentality is going to control our reality. And most of these young children, and that's all they are, they're just children. Mm-hmm. All they really want to know is that somebody gives a damn. Excuse my language. They just want to know that somebody cares. Sometimes when you go into their homes and you look at what they're dealing with, then it begins to make sense. Oh, this is why so-and-so behaves the way he or she behaves. He had nothing to eat today. He came home, saw his mother when he got home from school, but he ain't seen her since. So he's a young child or she's a young child, but got to make grown folk decisions. I'm not making excuses for them. Don't get me wrong. All I'm saying is that there is a balance. So as it relates to our children, we have got to do a better job at, first of all, we don't want to throw them away. We got to reclaim our own, and we got to build a future for them. Now, one of the things that happened with integration is that everything that we built up during segregation, which some people call the good old days, because during segregation, we had our own grocery stores, we had our own gas stations, we had our own hotels, we had our own businesses, so we could employ our own people. But then when we got the okay that we could spend money in white establishments who rejected us for years, we went across the track. We spent our money in the white-owned coffee shop, but white people didn't come and spend their money in the black-owned coffee shop. So the black-owned coffee shop closed down. The white-owned coffee shop flourished, and we didn't have nothing to pass on to our children. So now they're running around aimless with nothing to do in an educational system that was not built to strengthen their minds. So we have a problem on our hands that we must unify and come together and solve the problem. So yeah, we got youth that are wayward that we need to reach out to, but I got a bigger problem with us grown folks who are thinking like children in the decisions that we are making.
Now, when I brought up the kids, I I don't want to relegate that just to a black or brown, because I do the stories enough. It is a American problem with the children.
Yes, sir.
Completely. So I want to make sure I put it out there, because my daughters could tell you stories right now of white kids getting caught up with drugs, white kids fighting in school, white kids getting caught having sex in the bathroom, all that stuff. So it's an everybody problem, trust me. And sometimes we get into that. I know we care about what's going on, but something is all of us, but yet the media want to put it at just one group of people. And I notice how dangerous it is that when they do that, or even when they talk about crime, black crime is black on black crime. So wait a minute, when you do the research, everybody commit crime.
Yes. And
most of the crime that happen to people is by where you live. So why is he don't speak about the police brutality cases that happen to white folks or whatever, but you focus on black folks, and then they so evil, they have an illusion to a lot of poor white folks that see none of this happen to you and we don't do this to you, and then you start peeling that onion back and like, wait a minute, you ain't no different than black people. Because we live in a, like you say, capitalist society, and it depends on how much money you have. I could take you to a place right now in Channelview, and like you're talking about black people, all these drugs and black people this, I can show you a lot of white folks that's bad on that crystal meth and how the police be treating these white people over here. So we have, I think, a system problem. And the deception is that system only affects one group, even though now that one group, which is us and other groups at times, we get 10 times worse of it. Don't get me wrong, we do. And I would never take away from that, because we don't get the same, like you said, breaks and stuff like that when it comes to things here in this country. But at the same time, when we was talking about the kids, I'm talking about some of the blatant things I've seen. Not like I come from the hood, okay? I get it. Some parents aren't there. Some parents got to work. I mean, it is what it is. Some parents aren't good and let them go out in the street and hang out with the thugs and everything like that. I get it. I seen it.
Yes, sir.
You know what I'm saying? But there are some people who, and I don't want to, I understand what you're saying, you're right, but I don't want some people to take it like, well, yeah, you see, that's why. And like, look, because I know plenty of people come from the hood in those same conditions and later became business owners, doctors, lawyers, community activists, or whoever else, because you made the choice in your mind, say, you know what, I want to do better for myself. I'm not going to let my past circumstances determine my future.
Yes.
And I've seen plenty of kids like that. I've seen kids who come from the worst of the worst, but get Ivy League degrees, become all kind of people in society, sports players, actors, actresses, so I just want to say that it's more so our choices. Even though we come through a bad situation, it's not our fault.
I agree.
Our dad wasn't around, or our mom wasn't around, or whatever. But it is our choice to make a decision, because a lot of young people watch this channel, brother, and I want them to understand it's their choices.
Children nowadays are growing up faster than before, in my opinion. When I meet a 3-year-old, 9 times out of 10, that 3-year-old has the mind of an 8-year-old. But so if you're 15, but you know right from wrong, and you decide to go and rob the liquor store anyway, when that liquor store attendant decides that he wants to shoot whoever's robbing that store, it doesn't matter whether you 15 or 35. You're going to catch that bullet. So when I speak to young people, I speak to them about personal responsibility. Because I don't know everybody's individual home circumstance. I consider that, but I don't deal with that. My question to them is, what are you going to do about it? Well, you say, I grew up fatherless. Good. It's not good, but if you grew up fatherless, you turn that stumbling block into a stepping stone. I grew up fatherless as well. And you know what? It motivated me to be a better father. I grew up in poverty. Okay, you turn that stumbling block into a stepping stone. You grew up in poverty. Now that should inspire you to want to be an entrepreneur so that you will never go through that again. And that's what it's about. Teaching our young people to turn adversity into opportunity. It's a mind thing. But the Bible says, how can they know unless they have a teacher? And how can they have a teacher unless he or she been sent? The question is, are we going to our young people and trying to teach them? And I think that's the problem. See, you get mad when they join the gang, but the gang member is not afraid to go into the hood where they are. But the pastor is, the community leader is, the elected official is. So you got mad at the gangbanger because the gang leader got to him first. Where were you? Where were we? So I think there is a balance. We do have to consider the environment in which they've grown up. We have to consider what it is that they've been taught. But at the same time, when you know better, you got to do better.
Correct.
And we got to be straight up and unequivocal when we talk to our young people about that in 2016 and beyond.
So now, and you mentioned the churches, people, all over the world, watch our program. One thing I have with a lot of churches, and one thing I love about the young people today, they do not want to see or hear BS no more. And I love that about them. You can't trick them with pray this way and tithe this way and God will do everything. No, they don't want to hear that. You got to show these young people that you real, that you tangible, and that group of people, I believe, could change a whole lot in our community. But we got to be real here. Now, I'm a person. I'm a Christian. I've been to seminary as well, and that's where my education's at. So that's why I'm a little bit more harder on Christian pastors than maybe most. But what is going on with some of these churches? They looking like $1 million. They pressuring people by tithes, and a lot of people discuss this here. But yet we're not seeing no change in the community. And I have people, some of you tell me, what are you doing out there with the Nation of Islam and Muslims? Say, first of all, Jesus said to treat others the way you want to be treated. So should I treat them bad? I just want to know. And Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself. That's what he said. So how am I supposed to treat other people bad? Okay, then when he was around, he went ate with tax collectors and the quote unquote sinners and everything else. He didn't just sit in the four walls of his temple and just preach to the people that agree with him all day, because the work is outside. So my thing is this: if these brothers are doing the work outside, I have love for the people. You have love for the people.
Yes, sir.
Why can't you sit down and join up with your brothers and sisters and say, let's get together? We may have a few differences, and differences may not even be much. Not nothing that should say keep you apart, because we don't have a time period to be apart right now. It's not even working no more. No. I mean, it is like you better get in line, because these folks every day, you're looking at the presidential elections, you're looking at the things they pulling. You got Donald Trump running around all over the place, pandering to the white supremacists to the point that they are reaching out to their folks, cold calling, saying, vote for Trump. This is who we support. And Trump don't even stand up and say, you know what? I'm trying to make America great again. And that's not what I'm for. That's not what I'm about. Now, one time I ever heard him say that. I'm trying to join everybody together so we can fix this country. And I don't understand why he don't even do that, because really a lot of people liked him before, but now he's kind of like pushing a lot of people away from him. And I don't understand why he's trying to focus on the white supremacist base. What's going on with some of that? Because that is definitely, we need to join together, but also focus on this political side as well.
Great questions. Let me first say that when Sandra Bland was pulled over by State Trooper Brian Insigne, he never asked her about her religion. When Mike Brown was shot down by Darren Wilson, in their discourse, you never heard anything about a religion. When Eric Garner was choked to his death for allegedly selling single cigarettes on the side of the street in New York City, the subject of religion never came up. So if our oppressors don't care about our religion when it comes time for them to oppress us, why should we allow ourselves to be divided by something as superficial as religion when it comes to us coming together and doing something for ourselves? We must first understand the difference between religion and spirituality. Spirituality is something that takes place within. It comes from the heart. Your religion is the vehicle by which you express that. In a nation where God is truly honored, various religions can be tolerated if we are all of God. So Minister Farrakhan said it like this, and I love this analogy. He gives the analogy of 5 children sitting around the table, and one says, my daddy says 6 + 1 is 7. Then the other says, well, my daddy said 5 + 2 is 7. And the other says, well, my daddy says 3 + 4 is 7. And the other says, none of y'all know what y'all talking about. My daddy says 7 plus 0 is 7. And they start a big argument because everybody has knowledge, but don't nobody have understanding. Now, we talked about police brutality, but what's really vexing me right now is the amount of bloodshed that's taking place in the inner city community of the Cain and Abel type. It's just eating me alive from the inside out right now. So you're a Christian, okay? You say you're a Christian.
Yes,
you study the Bible. I grew up in church. I studied the Bible then. I still study the Bible now. I am a Muslim, follower of the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. I study the Holy Quran, among other books. So let's say we're both sitting on we're standing on adjacent corners. You with your Bible, me with my Quran. I'm reading, you reading. Somebody gets shot in the middle of the street. He's laying in the middle of the thoroughfare. He's bleeding out. There's a puddle of blood underneath him, and life is coming out of him. What do I look like arguing with you over what's in the book while people are dying right in the street underneath our feet? If you can't put your book down for a minute and I can't put my book down for a minute to go and save the dying man in the street, then what's written on the pages in your book ain't worth nothing. What's written on the pages in my book ain't worth nothing either, if we can't set them aside and do what we claim we say should be done as written in the book. See, it's not about what you profess anymore. It's about what you do. So I can unite with anybody on that principle. And if you really study all monotheistic religions, at the root of them is one principle. It's the golden rule. You treat others the way you want to be treated. We may pray differently. Our houses of worship may look differently. We may have different cultures. But at the end of the day, I want to know, how do you treat people? I can go into a Christian church and I can listen to a Christian pastor and be fed very well. I may not even accept everything that he or she says, but I'm going to take what's good and I'm going to keep it. But you know what? As a Muslim, I can go into a Muslim masjid and I might not agree with nothing that he has to say. See, I'm at a point in my life where I'm no longer fascinated with the exterior. See, you can be taught by a 3 or 4 year old child if you're always listening and looking for God. And that's the problem. We're not listening and looking for God. We want to argue with somebody about something that we ourselves probably really don't even understand. So I say that, in particular, as black people in America, we cannot allow ourselves to be divided by religion. We can't wait for the Pope of Rome in Rome or the scholars in Mecca to give us permission to unite to solve our problems here in America. We've always been oppressed based upon who we are, not what religion we believe. So I want to encourage brothers and sisters all across the globe. Let's put that to the side for right now. There are people dying in the street, and we got to do what we must in order to save a generation.
And I can't say much more than that because, I think we at a point, like I stated before, we need to unify or die. That's where we at.
That's really it.
It's time out for all that. And, all that old shoe shining a lot of y'all be doing and buck dancing, that's not even saving you no more because these folks going to come after you when you think like you getting out of line. And y'all have to realize that when you messing around out here with some of these people. Now, this is the thing. There are some people that will say, well, I like Minister Farrakhan, and I'm not a black person, but he said some things in the past. Muslims allegedly believe some things that I can't join with, but I like what they say. What do you say to people with those outside our community with those assessments?
We say that, first of all, everyone is entitled to their opinion, but make sure that your opinion is based upon facts and not based upon propaganda. I think Malcolm X said that you have to be careful of the mass media. They'll have you loving the people you should hate and hating the very people that you should love. When I began to first study Elijah Muhammad's teachings as taught by Minister Farrakhan, there were certain things that I had questions about as well. But instead of just refuting them mindlessly, I went and began to do research to find out what it is that I was listening to. And through my research, see, my objective was to try to prove it wrong. But the more I dug, the more I saw this man right here is divinely and prophetically speaking the truth. And I became a follower and have followed him ever since. So remember that it is the media's job to give you a perception of a threatening black man. When I say threatening, means threatening to their power. It's their job to give you a false perception of him to make you dislike somebody that absolutely loves you. So Farrakhan's track record, it speaks for itself. I believe he joined the Nation of Islam in 1955, which would be 60 years, 61 years that he's been a servant of the people. Who else do you know that could make a call? And for instance, the 20th anniversary of the Million Man March, it is said that we had somewhere right below or above around 1 million people with no mainstream media involvement.
Correct.
No mainstream media involvement. This man is 81 years old. And during the age and the era where there's this gap between the young and the old, the youth and the elders, this man was still able to call out mostly young people to 10, 10, 15 in 2015. When you see something like that in your lifetime, know that God is present. And only God could magnetize a man and guide a man in such a way to produce that kind of effect. So even at this age, Minister Farrakhan's enemies have not been able to stop his effectiveness and his progress. Matter of fact, he's more relevant in 2016 than he was 30, 40 years ago. So I say to those of his detractors, search your heart. And I challenge you to do your own research on the man. They say that he's an anti-Semite, but you can't prove that. I'm one of his followers. He's never taught me to be anti-Semitic. I don't hate Jewish people. They say that he's anti-gay. How can you prove that? He's the man that taught me to treat those in the LGBT community with the same dignity and respect as you would treat anyone else. I mean, so if I, as one of his followers, am not following the way of the things that you're trying to put on him in terms of anti-Semitism, sexism, and if I as his follower am not moving in that direction, then I think that's a testament to his leadership. And let me say, I'm striving to not moving in those directions. I'm not perfect, but I just say that you can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears. Mm-hmm. And I'm not saying anything grandiose of myself, but I'm striving to be a reflection of the leadership that God has given me. And I think Minister Farrakhan is God-given leadership. I believe that he is the best example of what it is to be like God in our midst right now. And that most of his detractors, they have an agenda. And it's a part of their agenda to make us hate a man that loves us with all his heart.
Well, look, we're speaking about the media here. And the big issue, and it's like it opened to me one day like it was a light bulb. Mm-hmm. Black people or any group of people have always had, fought for different causes in the street.
Yes.
And they stood up and they made some good grounds. Even you go back to the civil rights movement. But the one thing that black people never really had and never took a grasp to was media. Mm-hmm. It never, because see, these folks have it. Mm-hmm. They can come at you and attack you on that front without even going out there and throwing nothing at you and causing simple-minded people, which we have a lot of simple-minded people in this country, because they even talk about an article recently about the dumbing down of America. We have a lot of simple-minded people who are easily deceived at the media to hate Black Lives Matter, to hate you because, oh, well, he's with Farrakhan. I mean, you never said nothing bad about you, but now all of a sudden they hate you because they told them to hate you. And we don't understand how we have to build up our media. We have to stand as a shield against that, because it's going to come at you. But you don't have that many. So why is it that we aren't pushing more, of young black men, black women to get involved in media, and why we feel that we can't really, and some of us are supporting it. But it shouldn't just be me, it shouldn't be just a few other brothers and sisters. It should be a whole lot of us doing this stuff now, since we have the opportunity to reach the world. So why is it you think that we don't have enough media outlets, to speak about different things in our community?
Control of information is detrimental to winning any kind of war. And we've been engaged for over 400 years in a battle for the minds and hearts of black people, brown people, poor whites, and the disaffected here in America. Control of the media has always been paramount. And this is why the internet is so important. And the age of information that we live in is so important, because when we begin to develop different channels of information where we're feeding the people clean water. See, as long as the powers that be are able to deceive the people, they can rule the people. And this is the way I say it. When they can no longer fool you, they can no longer rule you. See, hundreds of years ago, the Bible was kept from the masses of the people. It was used as a tool to rule over the people. But then the people rose up, and then they demanded that, we want to see the text. We want to see God's word for ourselves. So then they had to tamper with the text and then give it back to you. I just say that as an illustration that anybody who can disturb the control of the minds of the people by those who are in leadership of this world is dangerous. So I'll give you an example. Okay, 1995, we had the mainstream media who fought against the Million Man March, but didn't realize until it was too late that they were actually helping us. So after that, they decided, we don't want Farrakhan in mainstream media anymore. So CNN shut him out. MSNBC shut him out. The BBC shut him out. All of these platforms, they would not allow Minister Farrakhan to come on anymore. So much so that last year, while he was on the tour for 10-10-15, people were saying to Minister Farrakhan, we haven't seen you in so long. We thought you were dead. So the media shuts him out. So I'll tell you a story. My brother Jesse Muhammad does social media for the minister, and they were in Miami, and the reporter from the Miami Herald, mainstream news, was trying to come into the minister's rally just to do a story. But the minister had made the call, no mainstream media, only black media will we use to promote 10-10-15. They escorted the mainstream, I hope it's okay for me to say this, they escorted the mainstream media reporter out. So it started with the mainstream media shutting him out. Now he's shutting them out. Why? Because we've got social media now. We're in the age of information. We've got modern technology. And through modern technology and through only the push from black media, we got almost 1 million people to come to Washington, D.C. in 2015. What does that say about the power that we have among us? So when it was over, I put out a tweet that said, thank you to the mainstream media for not promoting 10-10-15. You only prove to us how much we don't need you anymore. But what good is it for us to say away with mainstream media if we don't redirect that energy into supporting programs like this and other media, and not just black media, but other forms of independent media that want to push truth, that want to expose lies and keep the people awakened and in the light versus asleep in the dark. So we have to do our due diligence in supporting black media, supporting independent media, and making sure that the truth gets out there.
Yeah, that's like I said, that's what a lot of my fight is at, and we trying to do as much as possible.
You fighting a good fight, brother.
Every day, like I said, we trying to set up that work on, we can get some touring going. A lot of people talk, brother was talking to me about, you been doing any events? Say, no. I went and met over there at Kroger. He stopped me in the grocery store, and I said, but you know what, we want to get there. We just need the right direction or some place to speak, but we going to try to do that because the people are not asking to take the message on the road.
Yes.
But this is the thing. The crime, and we have just a slave mentality that bothers me, because I said in the state one time in the video, if black people would love you like they love some white people, we'd be great. But think about it, Dylan Roof can kill 9 black people in the church, and they'll forgive him. If the police, let's say if it's a racist one, do something to a black person, it's rationalized by black people, find 100 excuses for why it happened. But if a black person step on your shoes, you ready to put a bullet in his head. If a black person talk to you a certain way, you ready to X them out of your life, cut them out your family, won't forgive them. But your boss at work will talk to you the exact same way, who could be white, and you will just forgive him. Oh, he's just having a bad day and all this other stuff. But if it was a black supervisor, you would give him hell the whole time you're working there. I've seen that. Why is it that black people, and you can't even say that white people today is forcing you to love them a certain way. You can't say that.
No.
You can't say that. I don't see it because but a lot of it is not knowledge of self. I get that. But why is it that we just have so much hatred for each other? Just on simple things.
I agree with you, Brother Phil. We can't say that white America has been doing some kind of pony trick to try to convince the rest of the population to love them. They have not done that. If anything, it is we who have stepped outside of the bounds even of our dignity sometime to get white America to love us, and we still are maltreated and treated in a way where that is undignified. I believe that integration was less about finance for us. It was less about freedom, justice, and equality for us. It wasn't about us wanting to be in the same position as white people in this country. I believe so much of our desire for integration was psychological. We weren't looking for equality, we were looking for love. But we were looking for love in all the wrong places. So the condition of our minds have not changed. You got to understand that 300 plus years of chattel slavery, that's a long time. And a lot of people, they'll become a little disenchanted with you when you begin to bring up the issue of slavery. But what good is it to be freed physically, but to still be enslaved mentally? And part of that enslavement had to be that we conditioned the black man in America to hate self, not dislike self, but to hate self. And then they weave that white supremacist philosophy into all of their systems. It's in the educational system, it's in the religious system, which is why in 99% of churches in America, there's a white Jesus on the wall, when all historical accounts, the biological facts, the scientific facts, they all come to the same conclusion that this was a black man. But why should we paint him white? Why do we paint all the angels white? Why is it that everybody at the Last Supper was white? Is it that the black folk were in, the back cooking the food? What is it? This was not by accident. This took place by design, so that everything that we saw that represented whiteness in our minds represented rightness, and everything that we saw that was black. You wear white to weddings, but you wear black to a funeral. When you swindle somebody out of something, they say you blackmailed them. Black Monday is something that is pictured as a dark Monday. Everything that's that is considered black is bad. Where did this come from? It came out of somebody's mind. And that still oppresses us to this day. Even on Easter, when you go and you eat the jelly beans, man, you eat the red when it tastes good, you eat the white when it tastes minty, you eat the green one, man, this tastes good, but then when you eat the black one, it leaves a nasty taste in your mouth. Now, that may sound like a childish example, but it's everywhere you go. So the belief that the white man's ice is colder, the belief that I should listen closer to a white supervisor versus a black supervisor, the belief that the coffee tastes better in Starbucks than it does in a white-owned coffee shop is something that has been long held for centuries. And it is a direct knowledge of our lack of knowledge of self, our lack of knowledge of God, and our lack of knowledge of our history and the legacy of our people. We did not come from Africa where they say we were running around with bones in our noses swinging from trees. We didn't start swinging from trees till we came to America, but we ended up having ropes around our necks when we were swinging from those trees. So these are basic fundamentals of blackness that many of us have heard for years, but we got to remember that the masses of our people still do not know self. And when you don't know self, you become confused about your identity. So you have to go out and get the latest shoes to identify with. You got to get the latest purse, a Chanel purse or Air Jordan shoes or the latest Mercedes Benz, because you have to attach other names that represent value to yourself because you think it gives you value, but it don't. We have got to learn about ourselves in order for us to love ourselves. So I go back again to say that we've got to return to the old African proverb of each one teach one. And so the more we come out of that mental darkness, the more we're able to see the light. And in that light, we will find love for self. That's the uphill road. It's a difficult road, but I think it can be achieved. We cannot give up.
Now, I want to, wrap this up with a point because I can't leave this out.
Yes, sir. Our
sisters. Today, we see a lot of things with our sisters that we haven't seen, things forever, okay? Yes, you can look at a music video from the 90s and look at how the sisters were dressed and, how they, some of was conscious too. It was cool to be conscious back then. But now you see this, with a lot of sisters just being scantily clad. It's like they it's pushed for them to be just over sexualized. And it's very disheartening to see a lot of that because just as a man, you see a woman like that, you're gonna think automatically the sexual thought. You're not gonna think wife. Okay, but you look at in other communities, yes, they have sexualized women too, but they don't push those women to the forefront as much. Like they will push the black woman. And it seems like a lot of black women are hurting. They write me and tell me, where's the men? What are they doing? A lot of them feel like they don't have a future. I mean, speak to the condition of a lot of black women today.
Ooh. I hurt for my sisters. I feel like our sisters are in a position where they feel undervalued. When you look at the statistics, there are more black men born. You can double check this, but there are more black men born in America than black women, more boys than girls. But by the time we reach the age 18, 19, 21, because of mass incarceration, the criminal justice system, homosexuality, because of black on black murder.
Brother, let me stop you right there. Yes. Just before you continue, please just say crime, because that black on black term is something from them, and even the FBI and them, they organizations, they just call it crime. So we got to get that out of our terminology. But I'm just saying.
Yeah, I call it black on black murder because I want to speak directly to my people. I understand that white on white murder is more prevalent than black on black murder. I understand that. But there comes a time when you have to have a family conversation. So if I use that terminology, I'm just speaking in family terms. I'm talking about black men being knocked off mostly by black men. That's what I'm talking about.
That's correct.
But your point is well taken. Right now, in what they call the free world, for every 100 black women, you only have 83 black men in the free world right now. So if you line up 100 black women who said, I want to have a family, I want to have a healthy relationship, I want to reproduce children, I want to be a part of the nuclear family, you have 17 of them who are disqualified because there are not enough men. So, and I'm talking about the numbers, I'm talking about physically. So what happens when there's an overabundance of a product that's on the market? It becomes devalued. The price goes down.
Like the oil right now.
Exactly. So we're in a state where, because we're thinking on a low level, where the female has been devalued. Men are not worried about, I gotta treat her right, because there's always another one around the corner. And this is not the attitude that we must take. I think that God will punish us if we begin or we continue to look at our sisters like pieces of merchandise versus serious human beings. So I coined a phrase that goes like this, Brother Phil. When a woman has to use her body as leverage, it's because she has not properly cultivated her mind. When she's got to use her body as leverage, she hadn't properly cultivated her mind. So we are in a critical state as it relates to black women. I have 3 daughters. So this is a topic that's very, very dear to me. I want them to grow up and I want the best for them. I don't want them to be devalued. I want them to be valued. So as brothers, we have to go above and beyond to show respect for our sisters. Even if it appears as if though she's not respecting herself, you be the catalyst that inspires her to be more respectful of self. And I'll give you an example. The other day I was coming out of a black-owned coffee shop, Cafe and Coffee on Scott Street. That's 2612 Scott Street.
Get that plug in.
Shout out to Cafe and Coffee. And a lady propositioned me. She said, hey, how you doing? You look handsome today. You want some company? So on and so forth. She was basically propositioning me, asking me if she could perform oral sex on me. And I said, oh, nah, sister, I'm okay. She said, well, what's wrong? Is it the way I look? You know, she said, you're not gay, huh? I'm like, no, I'm not gay.
What is it with, hold on, let me stop that right there. Y'all have to stop that stuff. If a black man don't want to fool with you, stop trying to assume he gay.
Thank you.
But a lot of times, some of y'all got gay friends. But so how'd your gay friend feel if they're using gay as an insult? My God, it's like try to hurt a man's manhood. You gay? I don't want to have kids right now. You must be gay. Why everything is gay?
It's unfortunate. That's part of the propaganda too, but that's another story.
Yeah.
So I told her sister, I said, no, I ain't gay. She said, well, what is it? The way I look? I said, no, ma'am, it's not the way you look. I said, it's just that I respect you more than that. I know who you are. I say, you a queen, sister. You're just not in your proper state right now. But that's okay. It could be greater later. Elijah Muhammad taught us, his followers, something very profound, and I use it in my everyday life. He said that in every black man and woman there is God. Our objective and our goal and ambition is to be skillful at pulling the God out of black women, not feeding the world that's in them. So what I did is I touched something at the core of her. See, that's who she really is. And you got to understand, you may see a sister on the stripper pole. That's not who she really is. That's what she thinks she has to do right now to make ends meet. Sometimes they do it for attention. Sometimes they do it for financial reasons. I'm not sure. But deep down inside is a dignified black woman. And if you can remind her of who she really is, then that's what will separate you from the rest of the men that she might run into. Some of our sisters have been tampered with as little girls, and psychologically and emotionally, they have not recovered. Some of them they feel like they don't see a reason why it is they should trust a man. So what I would like to be to black women, to all that I come in contact with, is that brother that they leave and say, it's some good brothers out here. Now, all of us have, as men, have made mistakes. We've made mistakes with women. Mm-hmm. So that's not to beat nobody down. But Pac said it best when he said, keep your head up. And if you can't tell a sister nothing but that, say what Pac said, keep your head up. But understand that just because you see her underdressed does not mean that she has to be undervalued. But I do agree that when you conduct yourself in a civilized way as a woman, you give a man something to respect if he doesn't know how to respect you when you're not at your best. I think that's the best way for me to answer.
You know, one thing that I saw, because like I said, when I started going, to 10-10-15, and we went to a meeting at the Plymouth, I forgot the name of that church, the Plymouth Church. And it was really my first time going to a meeting where it was like a Nation of Islam meeting.
Yes, sir.
And I saw the way the women was dressed.
Yes, sir.
And I was like, wow. I said, they look nice, but yet they're covered. Because, and some of y'all know they go into these Christian churches. You see the women like they come straight out the club. And I'm like, that's not the proper way to be. So, in certain things, and I saw how a lot of sisters, are real respectful when I talk to them. You can see the knowledge with them. And like I was telling my wife, I said, I can't do nothing but respect that. And I said, and you need to have sisters like that to teach these young girls and some of these older women, how just to conduct themselves sometimes, because, it's like we have to teach each other, men and women within our community, to get off of this, this mindset that we own, to be disrespectful just toward each other, ourselves, the way we present, like even them sagging those pants underneath your behind.
Right. It's not just the sisters. It's not just the sisters.
You got them
it's
pants.
us too.
Yeah, you got them pants underneath your behind. And like, I remember when sagging first started, sagging will go maybe this far. You show a little bit of your boxers, not much.
Right.
But when it gets to the point, it's underneath.
Yeah, that's not sagging anymore.
It's showing your whole behind. And I'm like, who you advertising for? That's first and foremost. You're looking for Fleece Johnson to come get you?
Right.
From the Booty Warrior? I mean, who you looking for? and I remember, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, may she rest in peace. She was talking about the feminization of the black man.
Yes.
And how it was going to start with that sagging. And you see that, and today. And some people get mad when I speak about being an alpha male, standing up, doing what you're supposed to do. And really, when it comes to sisters, they expect us to be like that.
Yes, sir.
And they not really liking you if you're not that alpha male type.
That's right.
So we just got a lot of things we have to do, just as older brothers to teach the younger people, because really a lot of them, they want to learn. A lot of them are sponges.
That's right.
I've seen that.
Oh,
And that encourages me.
That's right.
Brothers and sisters.
That's
just
right.
You say, hey man, I want to know about this. I want to know about that. Because one young sister told me I didn't have my dad around, so I listened to what you say. It kind of helps me. And this young sister, what she told me, was 22 years old.
Man, I get the same thing, Brother Phil, and I think that's a prudent way for us to wrap up the interview. I want to say that I am so encouraged by the thirst, or the level of the thirst for knowledge for our young people nowadays. You heard Brother Phil and I talk a lot about the problems, but I see a whole lot of daylight in this new crop of young people who want to know about themselves. So that is very encouraging to me. I want to tell everybody to keep up the fight and know that our young people are hungry for knowledge. They're hungry for wisdom. They're hungry for understanding. The question is, who will feed them? And we can't feed them, Brother Phil, unless we have made it up in our minds that we want to constantly feed ourselves.
Correct.
Watching Empire is not gonna get it.
No.
Watching Love and Hip Hop is not gonna get it. Scrolling through the feed or the timeline of your Facebook page, that's not gonna get it. We have to put that away, and we have to sharpen our minds so that we can help sharpen the next generation.
Correct.
So it does my heart great joy to run into some of the people that I run into, because I hear it all the time too, brother. I'll give you an example. Young brother, I was visiting my daughter at her university, and I'll be brief with this. I was visiting my daughter at her university, and I stopped to get a bite to eat. The young brother was a waiter. He came up to me and he inquired about a book I was reading. I'm giving him my order, but I can tell he's staring at my book, because I'm always reading. I'm a nerd. So he says, "Hey, is that a pretty good book you're reading? I heard it was good." I said, "Yes, sir, it's good." He said, "Okay." Gave him my order. Came back, he brought me my food. Kept talking about that book. Where can I get that book? I like that book. I said, "You read a lot?" He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm a student." He said, "I'm a basketball player." He said, "But the only thing I watch on television is basketball. Other than that, I don't watch no TV. All I do is read." This young brother may have been 18 years old. So he got my food, came back. "Where you think I can get that book again?" I said, "You know what, little brother? Hold 1 second." I took my bookmark out the book, dusted it off. "There you go, brother. You could have it." He said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Yeah, it's your book." He said, "You sure?" I said, "I'm positive." I said, "You gonna read it, right?" He said, "It's slow right now in this restaurant. I'm finna read it right now." So he took the book over and he showed the book to a female waitress, a young sister that worked with him. She started looking at the book, and then she walked off with the book and wouldn't give it back to him. That's how hungry this generation is.
What was the name of the book you were reading?
It was called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. I can't think of the name of the guy who wrote it. I think his name's Murphy or something.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So I'm very encouraged by the thirst for knowledge of the new generation, and we got to do everything within our power to feed them. And I am, man, when I say this from the bottom of my heart, Brother Phil, and I look you right in your eyes when I tell you this. I am so grateful, brother, that God inspired you to build this platform to help us feed the next generation, the current generation. I believe that the truth that's being spoken from this platform will live long after we are gone. Because it's one thing to develop infrastructure and build buildings, but if you don't build people, then the buildings that you build will be torn down by the people that you failed to build up. So I appreciate you, brother, for being in the business of people building.
Well, I want to say that I want to thank you for joining us, and thank you for what you do in the community, because like I said, what you guys are doing with No More Bloodshed, I think that's something that needs to be nationwide. I know that touched a lot of people, and the work isn't about, we have some individuals who want to do it for money. It's not about money. If you're not doing it for the love of the people, then go home.
That's right.
And one thing I realized, that the individuals who are suspected of doing things for money, they're being called out now. And I never hear your name pop up in the individuals who want to do things for money. And I just hear nothing but good things and respect, for you. So like I said, I just, thank you for, reaching out and, being gracious, with us, inviting us, different things. And, everybody's been so nice. I met a lot of new people, and I didn't know how it was going to happen after Justice Else, but I wanted to connect with some people here in Houston. And so, everybody has just been so great,
Yes,
and I like that. Even my wife said the same thing. And she enjoyed going with Sister Sharifa and learning that knowledge, and she enjoyed everything. And so we just happy about some things with that, and that's a blessing, connecting with other people. So now, Brother Deric, where can people find you at? They want to connect with you.
Good question. You can go to my website if you want to learn about me or follow some of our activity. You can go to my website. That's dericmuhammad.com. It's spelled DericMuhammad.com. You can follow me on Twitter at Deric Muhammad. I go under the same handle on Instagram and on Facebook as well. So that's DERIC. It's spelled a little differently. And make sure you get that right. My mom is a stickler. She don't like when people spell my name wrong. But Deric Muhammad, I'm your brother, a humble servant. If you ever need me for anything, reach out to me. I look forward to connecting with you on social media via the internet. and I look forward to developing a relationship with your viewers. And let's get this work in, brother.
All right. With that said, I want to thank everyone for visiting with us today on the interview. We'll thank Brother Deric Muhammad for coming out to the studio. Now I don't have too many people here. You know that. So this is the first time I'd had somebody in here. So he is one of the good, upstanding brothers. So thank you for watching. Leave your comments. I definitely want to be interested in your comments. Make sure you subscribe, and see you next time.